named later. You're listening live from our Student Center studios on KCOU 88.1 and KCOU.FM.
We're going to get into the Mizzou big basketball victory last night at Vanderbilt. We'll also talk about the NHL trade deadline. Eli Lederman of the Columbia Missourian will come on to talk about a little bit of Mizzou sports at about 8:30. And then, of course, we have our final two segments that we always have here on Wednesday mornings, the weirdest things we saw this week. And as well, the Get It Off Your Chest segment. Jonte Porter led the way, Chase, with 24 points and 6 rebounds and 7 assists last night.
Yeah, Jonte Porter arguably played the best game of his life last night. And, I mean, he was just on fire from everywhere on the floor. He, like you said, Ben, 9 for 10 from the field, 24 points. They put him in the middle of that 2-3 zone, and he just dominated all night long. Whether it was stepping out to knock down a few threes or just playing at the high post and being a distributor. He also had, I believe, 6 assists last night. And so that's just Jonte Porter and what he does. He's going to be a great rebounder, a good scorer, and his vision's what really sets him apart at 6'11".
Yeah. The first thing that you can observe from that one is, holy crap, what a game for Jonte Porter. I mean, when you get a guy like that playing at high level like he did last night, you're probably not going to lose. And you mentioned it, Chase. Vanderbilt ran a 2-3 zone. They just could not contain him at all. And I thought what Missouri did really well was they dominated that game in the low post.
It was not no loss that Missouri could afford to have in terms of their NCAA tournament resume. And now, with that win, putting him at 19 overall, 9 in the conference, that probably means they're in the NCAA tournament, but certainly. But now we'll talk a little bit of NHL trade deadline. The deadline was Monday, saw several moves go down.
Even though the Tampa Bay Lightning have been amazing this year, I think the move for getting Ryan McDonough was huge. They had to get off Vladislav Nemestikov, but getting Ryan McDonough is huge for them. They've got another defenseman to pair back there, and like I said, I think the Lightning are really vamping up to try to go for the cup this year.
Oh, my gosh, you mentioned it. They are just going all out for it this year. We saw them come up just short in 2015. This is a very different looking team than we saw that year. But my goodness, they are trying to address all their possible holes. And really coming into the trade deadline, there weren't many. And they just really improved. JT Miller is a really good forward that I like, giving them depth on the wings. And obviously when you get an all-star like Ryan McDonough, who has proven leadership with the New York Rangers, he's shown that he can score and pass efficiently. He's known to rack up assist totals. But, wow, I mean, you pair him with a guy like Victor Hedman, my goodness, that is a scary, scary defensive unit. He is Eli Lederman with the Columbia Missourian. Eli, thanks for coming on this morning.
I think of his brother, Michael Porter Jr., we talked about him a little earlier. They even said last night in the ESPN broadcast they were shocked he didn't play last night, and there's a lot of speculation that he might play Saturday. Eli, what are some of your thoughts? Do you think he'll come back and play? And if he does, what are some of the chemistry issues, or what could he do to help this Mizzou team?
Well, I certainly thought he was playing last night. I was rushing to get dinner at like 5:45, so I didn't miss the tip and miss him getting out on the court. So I think everyone was pretty stunned. There were rumors swirling yesterday from an ESPN report that his parents are the ones kind of ultimately making this decision, and so that's a huge variable. But from the sound of it, NBA GMs really do want to see him before kind of looking at him in combines and whatever in the draft. So I think it would benefit him to come back unless they don't think so, which would raise some other red flags. But from a chemistry standpoint, it's not like he's been sitting on the couch since November. He's been around the team in a few different settings and now is practicing with the team. So I don't think chemistry is an issue. When you've got a guy that talented who has been around the team, he can just jump in and they'll be fine if he does come back.
Speaking of chemistry, one thing that I've really noticed from this Missouri team is their really streaky nature. Obviously, had a 5-game winning streak and followed up with a 3-game losing streak. Is there any one reason that you see that explains that?
I think some of it just comes down to the easy things are turnovers and foul shooting. Those are two things the team does very poorly with. Even last night in a win, Konzo Martin was not happy with the number of turnovers, and there's no reason that this team should be shooting 71% from the line in a game like that. It's one thing when it's per year, it's Hillman, but why guys like Cassius Robertson or Jordan Barnett are missing free throws is really, really baffling. So that's something that's got to get figured out for them before the tournament. And I think that, like you said, they're a streaky team, so they've got the chance, if they make it to March, where they could make a run or at the same time be getting upset in round one.
And that wasn't really something we had seen at all earlier this year in terms of the missing the free throws, which obviously was an issue last year. And then in terms of the SEC tournament being in St. Louis, do you think that will really provide a home court advantage for Mizzou, or are we still going to see the big fan bases at places like Kentucky and Auburn having a very good year this year still make the trip and pack the Scott Trade Center to where, even though it's just a couple hours down the road from Columbia, it won't be as much of an advantage for Mizzou.
I think it's pretty inevitable that there's just got to be a ton of Mizzou fans there with it being so close. It's pretty cool to have the SEC tournament in St. Louis. But at the same time, we know those other teams all travel really, really well. I was, for anyone who was at the Kentucky game, there was plenty of blue there in the crowd, and every other fan base in the SEC will travel well, particularly this year where you've got so many good teams from those big blue blood SEC programs.
Eli Lederman, Columbia, Missouri, joining us on air this morning. Real quick before we let you go, Eli, I know you're a beloved New York Rangers fan. What did you think of the moves that the Blue Sweaters made at the deadline? And was it hard to see any of those specific players go?
Oh, it was rough. It's been, I think we all saw the writing on the wall. The front office came out earlier this month basically saying they're committing to a rebuild. There were no specifics there, but the writing was on the wall. And look, they've had one first-round pick since 2013. They've been trading those away for years trying to get to the Cup, and they got there in 2014, didn't win it. It was time. The only guy it was hard to see go was Ryan McDonough, just from a standpoint of he's been around, he's been there, he was the captain, but I think just about any Rangers fan you'd ask would say they're overall happy with the direction they're moving in.
And for my get it off the chest, we are going to go on a rant, are we? The St. Louis Blues, how you have tormented me the last week and a half, or actually, the whole month of February, considering you've lost 7 games in a row. The goaltending is awful, the defense is awful, they can't score goals. They just traded away Paul Stastny. They're just kind of just giving up, man. I saw a tweet the other day that actually kind of described the Blues in one sentence. Jeremy Rutherford tweeted, "The Blues are done at the trade deadline, confirmed." And a Blackhawks beat writer, replied and said, "In more ways than one." And I agree. But